Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here to host yet another street debate from PAGS. My name is Mungusi Achingili. I will be hosting it. And with me are the panelists for the debate that we're going to be having. And the motion for today's debate is, when it comes to free speech in Zambia, is the law too limiting? So before we go into it, I would like our panelists to introduce themselves. So I'll start with the proposing side. Please tell us your name and where you're from.
Okay, my name is Robson Zakara from Mandevu constituency.
Lindanga Lande from Garden Compound.
Holding Searuvalo from Garden Compound.
Robinson Fuller from within Mandevu constituency.
My name is Cholenadu from Kabanana compound.
My name is Zulu Abigail from Matero constituency.
My name is Albert Nyanda, Kanyama constituency.
Zinanga Kamuti Study, Kanyama constituency.
My name is Sydney Meet from Lusaka Central.
My name is Judith Lionel Nasiwebo from Kawata.
Okay, thank you very much. So those are our panelists. But before we get started, we just want to highlight a few of some housekeeping rules. But because we're in the street, we will call them street keeping rules. Okay, so firstly, you will be given 3 minutes to argue the motion. So if you are proposing, you will be given 3 minutes to tell us why you feel like there's no free speech in Zambia or there's free speech, right? Okay, so secondly, interjections will be allowed, but you will be given a limit of 30 seconds to interject, and then your opponent will be given an opportunity to also defend themselves. Okay, have we got that clear? Yes. So I think with that said, we can get right into it. Please keep time. So we will start with the proposing team. You can start to argue your motion now.
Okay, so first and foremost, I recognize apena nzindikira bonse bane bapoera kushitako participate kuri street debate yapo. Now, from the proposing side, we are agreeing to the motion which says is the law too limiting in terms of freedom of speech. Now, kuri matemi abidi anaweza kunatisha understand imozini too limiting. When we say something is too limiting, we mean it is limiting to an extent that it disturbs the purpose of what it limits. Now, when we come to freedom of speech, mtende whenever now want to kuti wakambe umangala limited maningi ushena malamulo je motion yake. So is a development yes malamulo yamashita limit wantu kapena yama lenga kuti wantu wasazishite express freely. So we've got quite a number of reasons. The first one we'll look at is the Public Order Act. Now, if you look at the Public Order Act in Zambia, when you want to protest or ngatifunungana protest in Zambia, you write to respective institutions so that they give you permission. Now, how does that limit? How is that too limiting to people that want to express themselves? So, when you want to protest over something, as you are applying, so it is in the power of the state institutions to decide whether to give you that platform where you're going to protest or not. Now, it is limiting in a way that, let me give this practical example. Listen to it. Civil society organizations, civil society organizations, they wanted to protest about mining in the lower Zambezi. Now, they couldn't protest because the law banned them. When they applied for a permission from the state institutions, they were not given that permission. Hence, we agree to say the law is too limiting in terms of freedom of speech in Zambia. Now, secondly, we remember of just the past bush protest by Pilato, Michael Zulu, and other artists. They had to protest in the bush. Why? Because the law could not give them permission to protest freely. That is a clear indication that indeed the law is too limiting in terms of freedom of speech in Zambia.
There's an interjection.
My fellow speaker here, I want to understand, is the law meant to oppress people or to bring order? Because as far as I'm concerned, the Public Order Act is in effect because it is meant to make the society a better place. And because it's not because they stop you from protesting that they don't want you to express yourselves. They obviously stop you from protesting because they want to protect public peace. May you please clarify your point and speak from a point of understanding? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. It seems my colleague is not lightly getting what I'm saying. What we mean is that the law, yes, is there to bring order. But colleagues, if we were to say people want to protest for a good cause, for instance, mining in the lower Zambezi, and then they are stopped from expressing their views, is that order? It's not order at all, because the cause for which they are about to protest is good. Now, allow me to continue. As I continue, let's look at the penal code. Under the penal code, I will specifically talk about defamation of character. Now, defamation of character, nila mulemene wa stati ngati wakambavoi papa mzako, pina wakambavoi papa mundu, uja mundu angakusuwinge, nukupeleka ukote, and then wanakupasi mlando. Now, defamation of character, tikailangana many of the times, you must protect one as an individual. But when it comes to state institutions or people that are managing public offices, one offices, defamation of character, wama using kuzishita defend, kapena kuyusing kuyofia wandu, kutuwasa zikamba, wani kamene vishtika over many vivashita affect Mossad. The best example I would give is we've had a number of opposition leaders being arrested for defaming people in public offices. The example that I can give is we have the president of EEP, President Sylvia Tayari. He was arrested for speaking against the former president. We have Sean Tembo, who was arrested on a number of occasions for speaking against those in leadership. Friends, that sends a message. Friends, that is a clear indication to say the law limits who speaks out and who doesn't speak out. Hence, we can say, for there to be freedom of speech in Zambia, it is important that the law is repealed so that people can freely express themselves and they are ahead. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now take it to the second speaker.
So, inanikamba bali cyber bill law. So, the cyber bill, imagine restrict bandu. They express vindu. So, they comment or express themselves by vindu that affect because via so under the cyber bill law, bantu swanga kamba tine ba president chemwa chita still musha because via hence tikamba kuti law is the limit freedom of speech. Yes.
Okay, indeed, in Zambia there is a limitation in a way whereby there is no freedom of speech. Actually, it is enshrined in the constitution, but there is a limit that people go on or when they want to express themselves. For example, when you talk about the media coverage, we have various media houses, the public media houses and those which are owned by private companies. Those which are owned by private companies, there is a way in which the government wants them to be broadcasting that news. They don't want them to be broadcasting everything they hear, but the other news must be kept and not be published to the citizens. And in the actual sense, these media houses are working in order to inform the citizens in the nation. Like, for example, there's an instance where Prime TV wanted to be closed some time back in the PF regime. And it was closed. And another example is that there's this journalist from the Rainbow newspaper. The Rainbow newspaper press media was also arrested 18 months because he revealed some of the corrupt issues that the PF government used to do during their time in office. The other point I can say is the restriction on civil servants in commenting on national issues. You find that the civil servants, they are there to serve the people as well as to serve the government. But when it's time to serve the people, they are not allowed to comment on what the government does. They are said to be non-partisan, but they are not allowed to comment or say anything. We see people losing jobs and then all the drama happening around because they are restricted in doing that. So we find that the law, despite it being enshrined in the constitution, there's a limitation in which people can express themselves. I can leave it to the next speaker.
So thank you as a summarizer. I'm just going to summarize from what my fellow speakers. So summarize I write. So point your first elements back and back up Public Order Act time. Just like he said, if you want to protest, then definitely you're supposed to write, you're supposed to seek, you're supposed to write to the higher authority the reason why you start your protest. So mufunika mwaenda kucha, then you tell them. So definitely if the protest is about against the government, which means that the protest is against government, which means that allow is the protest, which means freedom of expression is limited. I also talk about on the penal code. First speaker the defamation of the president. So you cannot speak against the president. The president is immune to criticism. So definitely ukakamba choipa, in as much as the president alwashita choipa, uzazi wakutiwa kapokola wabokishita chani boku kugwira. Demo anaili maona ka. So which means it is the limit mukukamba titafyo. Limamele tasho ka. Then again, that parliament vashita officiate. President amagwache kupasa speech. Then kumafika ijatamia answer na question segment. In as much as the vice president is there, but my MPs omangana na banning question and amafuniko funza wa president, but there is not that opportunity. So we feel that the freedom of expression is not there and it's being limited. Again, on the other point is on the civil servant. Just like my favorite speakers, Mandevu Bakambila.
Interjection from the.
I'm a summarize. I'm not supposed to be interjected.
Oh, okay. She's given us another rule. Sorry.
Thank you.
You can go ahead.
Thank you. So on the civil servant's part, so in as much as well, before we become the civil servant, we are the citizen of this country. That's one thing that we should all know. So in as much as we're working with the government of the day, we still have that freedom to express what is wrong and what is right. We're supposed to be given that freedom to say, but we can't say it because we are limited. We've seen a lot of people in the civil servant retiring in the interest of the public because they are limited, because when you said, definitely you'll be fired from the government. So we say, the freedom of speech is limited in our country. And with that submission, we say thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The law is limiting when it comes to this freedom of speech. So Manje, that's a chance for opposition what they think or what they feel is right with this freedom of speech. Okay, and then Manje, before we continue, I think I want to raise this point. It's about interjections. So as we said earlier, this is not a formal debate. So which means that if we're going to be fair, no one should be immune to interjections. So in instances where the fourth speaker is from speaking, the summarizer, you can just take down your notes. You can just take down whatever it is you want to argue, and then you can submit it later on. Maybe when you are arguing your motion, you can make mention of it. And then, yeah, I think we can continue. Timbele mapointi yako opposition Manj.
Hello everyone, mulibwanji bonte.
Hello.
So we are opposing to the motion that says the law on freedom of speech too limiting in Zambia, and we are saying no, it is not. Reason being, if you look at the way Zambia is, freedom of expression is the ability of people to express themselves, of people to be heard, people to associate with each and every political party of their own choices, each and every political party or Christian community of their own choices. In Zambia, we are in a multi-party democracy. We have a lot of political parties. We are out of the one-party state that was there back then. In as much as when we look at the freedom of when we look at the multi-party system, it gives people chances to air out their views. Bantu kamba ma views yao pali ma political parties. If freedom of expression was too limiting, up to now we would have still been in a one-party state. Members of the auditorium, civil society organizations, they are these are organizations that help to build the society, and they have different views, a lot of views, even views that are against the government. But the government still let this civil society do what?
We have an interjection from the proposing side, so just give him 30 seconds to tell us.
The current speaker, she's saying freedom of speech is the ability for someone to express themselves. Now, we have an instance where Pilato had a song and he released the song. Now, after releasing the song was banned and then he was jailed. He was even taken to court. Now, how is that a freedom of speech? How is that normal?
Members of the chambers, I think the proposing side is confusing freedom of expression with freedom after expression. What you're talking about is freedom after expression. Quite alright, he released the song, yes. People heard his voice was heard through his song. But whatever happened to him after that is dependent on what he said. Because the government infringes people because the government comes in when whatever has been said is bringing confusion to the public. That's when the government comes in. May I please continue? Yes, so civil society organizations are organizations that have a lot of different views, even against the government. But the government still lets this civil society organization run. This is all freedom of expression. We have issues of debt. We know that Zambia is indebted, and there is need for people to be held accountable, especially the people in government. The previous regime members of the chambers.
Speaker, please wind up time.
Can I?
30 more seconds.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so people ask for accountability. We have CAT International Zambia. They raised questions to the government on how they spent that same money, how they borrowed the money, and how it came to this date, members of the chambers. And none of them was jailed. This is all freedom of expression because the government is aware that the government is aware that people have this right. That's why they were not infringed. So we have to make sure that we understand the procedures. A lot of people that are infringed, they don't follow procedures. That's why they are infringed. I rest my case.
Okay, thank you very much. But before the next speaker, Zambia burning arguments. So we'll just allow one person because of time, so that we can still have a session after we discuss here. You guys argue your points. We can have a free type of arguments segment. Yes, discussion, because this is a discussion. So I will just give you a minute to talk about what you want to say. Yes, to her.
When Pilato released the song, and then that was freedom of speech, and then afterwards he was arrested. Now I want to find out, because from the information that I have is that freedom of speech encompasses freedom during speech and after speech. Now, where is the freedom of speech if he was arrested after expressing his freedom? Does freedom of speech ends when someone speaks? Thank you.
Okay, so I saw his hand up first. I'm so sorry. So we are going to let him defend, and then please take note of your yes.
If you understand what my fellow or my comrade here was speaking about, she said, if you dare to break the law, you are going to face the wrath of the law. And then when you look at Pilato's case, that was defamation. They followed him up because they found a case, and that's why he ran away. Why would you run away if you don't have a problem? Members of the public, I'd like to tell you that defamation is a crime, and we have a Defamation Act in the Zambian Constitution, which speaks to help the people who, the victims of defamation. So if today someone was to speak against you, then you can sue that person, and they will have to answer in court for that defamation. So that was the case with Pilato's issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will not allow you to respond to that one. We have to keep it going. So I will invite the next speaker to tell us their point.
Thank you very much. The law in Zambia with regards to freedom of speech is not too limiting. If it was limiting, all of us here wouldn't have been standing and giving our ideas or our opinions.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
the first point.
Yes.
Then the second point that I have is that, you see, the law is designed in such a way that it's regulating. It tries to regulate behavioral conduct between people. Too much of everything is always bad. So my main focus or my main point is this. The law, especially on freedom of speech, which is found in Article 20 of the Constitution, places a responsibility, one, on you as an individual. Then the second thing it does is that it gives you an entitlement. It gives you something to enjoy, which is to express your ideas. The responsibility aspect of Article 20 entails that you, as an individual, are supposed to have breaks, meaning where your rights end, somebody else's right starts. So in terms of freedom of expression, you don't say anything that you feel like saying. You can express ideas that are fruitful, ideas that are building the society, but you can't speak ill against somebody else. That's why we've got the defamation Act, you see. And then speaking about defamation, the law, like I said, regulates. It's not there to oppress. So what happens with defamation is that there are certain elements that are supposed to satisfy. Number one, you have to have a reputation.
Okay, before you continue, there's an interjection there.
Personally, I feel this is the biggest problem that we have in Zambia, because Malamulo, you are limited. Why am I saying you are limited? Yeah, freedom of speech is there, but when you speak against very progressive government, you are arrested. So are we going to stay Modi government Bakuba and then we just shun out to say, oh, it's a Stephen Kofkam because Kofkam Tizamangiwa?
Thank you. You spoke of bringing civil servants. There's also a very important rule that guides civil servants. If there's one thing that civil servants can do is to explain or say the things that happen in the institution. The reasons are very simple. One, it's due to, one is about safety and ensuring that whatever is put out there does not support some other cause which is very bad. Like for instance, criminals. If the police were saying anything that happens in their institution, they would obviously give criminals an advantage to maybe find some loophole to attack them or to attack the public. That's why we say it's not everything that you're supposed to express. Even the way you express something is important. Take the case of Rwanda, for instance. Rwanda banzatu kukwenze genocide. Because of what? Umozi che anaboera akamba something from somewhere akamba vaupo apari the other friend. You understand? Or the other tribe. Because of that, just a minute.
30 seconds.
So freedom of speech is not too limiting. The reason why it's there to regulate, the reason why the law is there is because it wants to regulate and protect, one, the public, two, even the interests of the nation. Because it's not everything that we're supposed to put out there. Otherwise, we render ourselves open to anything, any attack. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That was a very vivid explanation from my comrade there. So I would like to stand to the motion and oppose to it greatly because of the following reasons. I say the law of freedom of expression in Zambia is not too limiting because, first of all, people are free to talk about the issues that happen in this country everywhere. We've got a lot of people on buses today talking about the current economy, talking about what government is doing here, what government is not doing right. And they can all say it. Sometimes people even go as far as insulting the president, and they still go scot-free. What does that mean? The law of freedom of expression is there and is not too limiting. The other reason is we've got a lot of social media platforms where today, if you just wake up in the morning, you'd go...
behind you. We'll give her the chance to interject.
Okay, so I hear the fellow speaker saying that everyone has freedom, they can speak in the bus, you can even insult the president and you won't be arrested. As far as I'm concerned right now, there is a lady and the court case is in process. She said that the president is a Satanist, he sacrificed in the seventh day, but and the process is in the court. So are you telling me there is freedom of speech?
All right, thank you very much. Allow me to defend myself. We were speaking repeatedly here about the Defamation of Character Act that we have in the Zambian Constitution. What does this entail? It entails that anybody who speaks ill of somebody without proper evidence is contravening the law, and therefore they have to face the wrath of the law. If at all that lady that was saying the president is a Satanist, does she have the right evidence to prove him Satanist, or to prove him as a Satanist or not? If she does not, then what was she saying? She was saying things without grounds, and that is defamation. So she has to face the wrath of the law. So as I was speaking, I was talking about the much social media platforms that we have today, where you can go online and post whatever you want, talk about whatever you want, even go as far as insulting. We see them insulting on social media, talking about all these other things that I don't even understand. People speak about them because we have the right to freedom of expression. As you may know, we also have a lot of radio stations and TV stations where we see a lot of various political leaders or members of the public speaking on the problems that the country is facing. That also just tells you how much freedom of expression is not too limiting in the country. And as far as I'm concerned, you speaking about freedom of expression being too limiting, I don't believe, and I would like to attribute that to, or maybe I'd like to defend myself again with this point: the existence of civil society in the country. Most countries that do not have civil societies actually do not have the freedom of expression. As you may know, Zambia has a lot of civil society organizations that speak to many things that the government does. We even have civil society organizations that report to the United Nations, the bodies that Zambia is a signatory of. You know, even I would like to cite one very specific example where we have people reporting on the Sustainable Development Goals to the United Nations against the report that the government is providing. So the report by civil society is parallel from the one that the government is providing to the UN, and the report by civil society could not be directly speaking to what the government has said. It could be something totally different. Maybe the government lied in their report, but the civil society seeks to correct that. Allow me to go an additional 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, so without further ado, allow me to say the Public Order Act does not in any way infringe on anyone's right. A gun is very harmless, very harmless. If you keep it in the house, you won't find anyone dead. If you just put it here, no one will die. But give it to the wrong hands, that gun can kill and bring chaos. So what I mean is, the law is very harmless, but give it to the wrong people, it is going to oppress and destroy those people. Thank you very much.
As the last speaker, the summarizer of the opposition, I'm going to give you guys the true definition of freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is the ability which one has to talk freely without any legal sanctions or fear. In Zambia, do we have freedom of expression? That's the real question. As standing from the opposition side, Zambia is a signatory to a lot of international treaties, and one of them is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And in it, freedom of expression is there. So in Zambia, do we have it? We'll talk of it in three phases. First of all, the media, as in the internet, and the media, the private sector, the newspapers, the news agencies, and the freedom we have to speak. Let's talk of the internet. In Zambia, internet is there. Everybody's got a Facebook account, Twitter account, WhatsApp account. Everybody is free to write whatsoever they feel like, express their views and everything. And they've been arrested. If I write something on how I feel the budget was allocated, should I be arrested? I'm not arrested. And one of the things we can see is that on Facebook, on your Facebook account, you can actually write anything you want to write. Are you going to be arrested? No, you're just expressing your views. Is that wrong? Isn't that freedom of expression? It is freedom of expression. Now let's talk about the media, the news agencies, the newspapers. What they feel and what was said to be true as not to be true. Are they being arrested? No. Let me give you a practical example of the TV stations. In these TV stations, we have interviews where people discuss about current affairs, giving their views, explaining what should be done according to them. Are they being arrested? They're not being arrested. What does that entail? It entails that Zambia has got freedom of speech. Now let's bring it to the basics right now. When I say the government didn't do well in how they planned the national budget, that's my opinion. Is there going to be an arrest? An arrest is not going to be there. Reason being, that's my will. And one of the things what was said was that every single person has got rights, and these rights come with responsibilities. As much as you have got the freedom of expression, you should say things at the point of view of knowing, having evidence to back you up. If you don't have evidence, that will be termed as defamation of character. We've seen so many laws in Zambia. the perfect one you can actually say is the Public Order Act, which you guys have been using on the other side. Now let's talk about the Public Order Act. That Public Order Act was meant to protect the citizens of Zambia. I can actually attest to it. Just last week, I was attending an equality march on which we were protesting, and we were granted freedom of expression to march up and speak. Isn't that freedom? If that isn't freedom, what do you call freedom of expression? So, in my last remarks and my closing remarks, freedom of expression comes in form of saying your views, expressing yourself freely without any fear or legal sanctions. That is freedom of speech. In Zambia, do we have freedom of speech? Yes, we do have it. Perfect example right here. What are we doing? Expressing our views. That's freedom.
Okay, thank you so much. Naona kumankala ma arguments ya mene hapa nkose nzaeni. Okay, so manje tizangena mu segment mu minute ngapase muntu bali bonze chance yo kamba kamene bafuna kamba. Maybe some of their views were not brought into the discussion. They can air them out right now, but then we have to limit it to at least 10 minutes. So if I don't know how many are we? Okay, so then now we can, I think we can have, how many want to say something? Yeah, I think even a minute. 1 minute. Because we also want to open it up and hear what think about this particular subject. Okay, so we started with this side. We'll start with this side this time. Who would like to start?
Okay. All right, so I remember somebody talking about the to be respected. Because if you don't respect the presidency, then who do you respect? This is why he lives alone at State House and not in the shanty compounds where we come from. Because the presidency is to be respected. You know, when you look at, okay, let me allude, father is your father, right? And the fact that he's your father, there are some things you would not say to him. Especially in public. Okay, maybe you can talk to him in private, but do you say everything you have to say to your father in public? So like that's how a nation is like. The president is like the father of the nation. In fact, he is the father of the nation. So when we say the president is to be respected, we mean to him we must always make sure that we do not take any defamatory remarks, because he's the president. What will others in other countries think of us if we start talking ill against our very own president? So that was my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to raise another point. We don't have all the time in the world. So you have to just wait your turn, and then you can, in that 1 minute, you can be able to express yourself and say whatever is left to say. Okay, so who's next?
Okay, so my point is in each and everything that we do, in each and everything that is given to us, there is some sense of responsibility that has to myself as an individual. If I misuse my rights, if I use my rights to make other people feel bad, if I use my rights to infringe on other people, that right will be taken away from me. It's the same with expressing yourself. You can say, no, it's my opinion, it's my choices, but what are your opinions? What are your opinions building? Are they destroying other people? So there has to be some sense of responsibility to everything. Thank you.
And speaking of defamation, defamation, if you look at it in a legal perspective, you have to satisfy certain elements for it to be defamation. Number one, damages must be proved. You have to show that some which painted a very bad image on my reputation, such that I have suffered damages. So you have to satisfy these three things. If you can be able to, words are powerful. What we say carries weight. So if you can be able to just say something which doesn't put somebody's reputation in disrepute, and they don't suffer damages, then you're well and good. And this is what happens here in Zambia most of the times, because freedom of speech is not too limiting. Thank you.
Most thing when about is sometimes tikangana na maningi na freedom Tima boys in sisters, like no, just cause Tima like we have got even when we go to school. Tima kana na rules, there are rules to follow to school. So now if you go above the rules, they can even expel per school. So as in citizen, you are not, the law is not school limit. It's not. When we follow the rules, now you can't even see the police. If the law is school limit, so yeah, thank you.
Mama, take it.
Okay, so I think a clear-cut distinction or line kapena kusianisa pali existence ya freedom of speech na protection that people should have after they've expressed themselves. Yeah, it really needs to be comprehensive enough. Now, if we look at the law that we have currently that talks about freedom of expression, it has a lot of lacunas to the extent that the current regime or the current government, they can easily use it against someone, which is, in my conclusive remarks, I would say it's to be amended to avoid such circumstances. Thank you.
All right. Talking of the president, yeah, we understand the president, power, but him being a human being is prone to error. So tikalekacha tivonze viwa kamba president in kuvichita, then it is enda good because development it has to start from what? The constitution. If we have the right constitution, then the development is up where. So the other point is some of these laws that you're using now, they were made in colonial and then they are still there. We are not denying to say we don't have freedom of what? Expression. Yes, we have, but it is too limited. So it is too limited to a point where we need to amend, whereby you can even question about what power. That's the point.
Okay. The freedom of expression, yeah, it's very much limited. Okay. Ni vandu vangati like evana mangiwa hapo because of vindu vana posting hapa Facebook and kulwena mwezi wakamba like ati too much of everything is bad, like too much of freedom is bad. No. As for me, because there's a constitution is one ipangira because of what nimwe tenga my rights. Constitution nimwe tupeza freedom of expression, and freedom of expression ngati limited, meaning development is in the past because everyone muntu ali wonse ana power yo kamba palitani vinhu vevishtika mu country vese venda mushi na vevenda mushi. Thank you.
Oh, okay. In as much as Zambia has the freedom of expression and speech, yeah, it is there, but we find that those people in power, mostly they manipulate the law and use it to arrest those who express themselves. You can't say that everything that people did, those who are arrested because of expressing themselves, it is wrong. No, some things were meant to be expressed for them to expose what is really happening in the country. But in trying to express themselves, find that some of them get arrested. So in as much as we are having the freedom of speech and expression, it is at an extent where it is not fully achieved. No, people don't fully express themselves in doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay, so from my own perspective or my own personal view, I feel we have the freedom of speech and expression, but at the end of the day, the people that we put in power are the ones that misuse that. Because believe me, the past regime, you can't even say anything. Definitely, when you just say, even if it's not one, you just say, well, president, you are victims out, definitely. You'll be arrested. So the people that we put in power also misuse it. The constitution is there to guide us, yes. but the people that we put in power are the problem as well.
Okay. Okay, we have one last one. I didn't see you. Okay, you can go ahead. Okay, thank you very much. So me, I'm just going to talk about, he said we have the right to express and all that. But again, we need to think about it. I mean, you can't just wake up in the morning because I've been given the authority to express everything. You should just wake up in the morning and say, the president, you're stupid. You don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, you'll be arrested for that because you're insulting the president and you're not giving him respect. So in as much as we're trying to express our views, we need to first sit down, think about it. What is it that I'm going to address? Maybe the nation or my friends, or maybe the people from the government or so. So we need to sit down, think about it. And of course you should have evidence. Because like I heard you say, the lady was saying, no, the president is a satanist and all that. Did she have evidence to say the president, Balalo, Shuku and all that, he kills people? No, she didn't have evidence. So if you say that, definitely you'll be arrested, my friend. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for your input on this discussion. In my own opinion, I feel like this is a conversation that needs to keep going because I think the president na maruzi never following a day, so that at the end of the day everyone is happy, no one's rights have been infringed. Don't set in order for us to see change in our country. Okay, can I finish? Okay, so anyway, with that being said, so we have come to the end of today's debate session.